Hello, my name is Arzu Ozogus and I'm the instructor for this course. You can call me Arzu or Dr. O, which is what my students here at RISE usually call me. I'm very happy to welcome you to the course on global financial markets and assets, the first course in a 4-course series in investment and portfolio management specialization, where we will be developing a systematic approach to the age-old problem of where to put your money. All investors, whether you're managing a large sovereign fund or maybe you are an individual investor managing your own funds, we all share the same concern. We want to save more today so that we can eat more tomorrow when we retire, or so that our children can eat more tomorrow with our bequests, while of course at the same time we also need to worry about eating today. Let me give you a concrete example from my colleague Professor Andrew Ng's book on asset management. The Petroleum Fund of Timor-Leste. The Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste is a tiny country of about 1 million people in Southeast Asia. It lies northwest of Australia, and it occupies the entire eastern half of the Timor Island, along with a portion on the western side. The rest of the island, in fact, belongs to Indonesia. Timor-Leste has had a pretty rough history. It was colonized for many centuries, devastated during the Second World War, occupied for many years, until in 2002 it became independent. Timor-Leste is a poor country. Its annual GDP per capita is less than $900, and 4 out of 10 residents live in poverty. There is high unemployment. At the same time, Timor-Leste is a rich country. It has very large oil and gas reserves in the Timor Sea, which feed the petroleum fund that the Timor government established in 2005. In fact, as of the end of 2014, the Timor Petroleum Fund contains $16.4 billion. Timor-Leste's petroleum fund is an example of a sovereign wealth fund. We will talk more about sovereign funds in more detail later in the course. The question that I would like to raise for now is, why did Timor-Leste set up this petroleum fund instead of immediately spending its oil and gas revenues today? At the most basic level, a sovereign wealth fund is a vehicle for moving a country's savings from the present to the future. According to the IMF, Timor-Leste is the most oil-dependent economy in the world. The government obtains 95% of its revenues from oil and gas, and it has nothing else. By placing its revenues into the fund, the government is protecting itself from fluctuating oil prices. This way, the country can increase its consumption in a sustainable manner, even as its oil reserves are depleted. In other words, the petroleum fund is a tool that enables Timor-Leste to use its wealth for current and future generations. Timor-Leste's petroleum fund is an example of an asset owner, just like you and I may be asset owners. And just like Timor-Leste's biggest asset is oil, ours is our human capital. As we age, our human capital is exhausted and we consume from our retirement savings. This life cycle affects how we need to save, and the composition of our financial portfolio will change as we age. The fact that we can lose our labor income, even if temporarily, leads us to hold a portfolio that can provide some cushion in case we lose our jobs. So in this course and the next 3 courses, I invite you on a journey where we will look at the investing needs of asset owners. Whether they are large sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, university endowments or foundations, households or individuals, all asset owners share the same issues in investing: how to meet their liabilities, where to invest, and how much risk to take on. You will learn about how to think about these issues and how to formulate portfolio solutions that are tailored to your or your client's needs and goals, using the latest thinking and techniques in asset management and portfolio selection. Asset allocation is finding the right mix of assets. It requires an understanding of the economic environment, what drives returns, what the sources of risk are. While we will draw from more than half a century of financial theory and several Nobel Prize winning ideas, our focus will almost always be on addressing the concrete and practical issues faced by investors. We will look at lots and lots of data, and I will pull into our discussions whenever I can the latest research in finance that is important for smart investors and students of investment. I will also share articles, videos, and other bits and pieces that I find fun and interesting, which to an extent may reflect my taste. I hope they will also give you a chance to get to know me as well. Overall, I hope it will be a fun, interesting, and worthwhile learning experience for you. I'm really excited. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride in our journey through the investment management world. I'm very much looking forward to working together with all of you. Well, I grew up in Istanbul, Turkey. After finishing high school, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to come to the US and study at Oberlin College. If you've never heard of Oberlin, it's a small liberal arts college at Oberlin, Ohio, in the middle of cornfields in Midwest America. It's equally well known for its music conservatory, which is what attracted me to Oberlin in the first place. However, I quickly discovered that I wasn't talented enough to have a music career, so I studied economics, which I thought would have better job prospects for me in the future. After college, I was really homesick, so I went back to Turkey. My first job was at Unilever. It was a great job. It also happened to be a very exciting period for Turkey. The economy was just opening up to the world. It was going through a ton of liberalization. The Istanbul Stock Exchange had just opened after many, many years. There was a lot of foreign capital flowing in. So I left Unilever to go work for one of the few securities companies around back then. We were primarily catering to foreign investors, and because it was a small shop, I had the opportunity to get exposed to many different things, and that's probably when I got the finance bug. My current research focuses on the information role of markets. One fascinating aspect of financial markets is how it collectively aggregates information into asset prices. And I studied this process and how frictions affect this process and asset prices. I came to the Jones Business School because it was a really good fit for me culturally. Great people, and it was a good opportunity for me to do what I love, great research and great teaching. I currently teach both investments and corporate finance courses in our MBA programs, which I enjoy very much. It gives me especially a lot of pleasure if I can convert my students into finance. You know, finance can be a scary topic. It has a lot of numbers, has some rigorous math sometimes, but beyond all that, there are ideas that are grounded in economics, trade-offs. And I want all of my students to understand the intuition behind those numbers in these ideas. My goal is to give my students the best learning experience so that they have the knowledge to succeed. As I always tell my students, I like having friends in high places. Hi there, welcome back. Before we do a whole specialization on investment management, it's useful to define and describe the activities associated with the investment management process. This will provide us with an overall perspective for the concepts and the tools that we will be talking about in future modules and courses. Right, so the investment management process starts with setting investment objectives. Whether it's an individual investor planning for retirement, or a pension fund looking to meet its liabilities, or a university endowment, for example, with a very long-term growth rate target, the first step is identifying investment goals. Right? We can express these as either, for example, a desired nominal or real rate of return, or alternatively, these objectives may be liability-driven. In that case, the investment must produce a certain cash flow to meet its the contractual obligations. And these investment objectives, of course, should reflect the risk-return trade-off between the expected return that an investor wants to achieve and how much she's willing to assume risk. Okay? So once the investment objective is defined, this will also help us determine what the benchmark, right, or what is sometimes called the bogey, to evaluate the performance of the investment manager. Right? This objective will be used to assess the alternative investment strategies available. In later courses, we will discuss how, for example, an investor's risk tolerance, behavioral biases, right, tax considerations can influence the investment objectives and the choice of the investment strategy to best achieve these objectives. Right? So these are some topics that we will be talking about in the future. The second step in the investment management process is developing an investment policy. Right? So come up with an investment policy that will meet the stated investment objectives. This really is you can think of it as a document that guides all investment decisions. Essentially, this amounts to deciding on the investor's actual portfolio, right? Typically, an investor may start with all her money in a cash bank account, and then maybe consider how much to invest in something riskier or with a higher expected return, right? So you can think of this as more broadly the asset allocation decision. Right? How funds are to be divided across different asset classes. And then the next step is the security selection decision, which basically deals with the choice of the particular securities to hold within each class. Right? Finally, the last step is, of course, measurement and evaluation of investment performance. Right? So the last step in the investment management process is the measuring and the evaluation of the investment performance. This involves monitoring the portfolio, rebalancing the portfolio as necessary, and measuring the performance and evaluating that performance relative to some benchmark. So in summary, the investment process consists: 1, setting the investment objectives; 2, coming up with a policy document that guides all investment and portfolio decisions; 3, finally reviewing and evaluating the performance of the portfolio. In later modules and courses, we will discuss in detail the concepts and the tools you will need for each of these steps of this process. Hello, welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to talk about one of the very basic concepts of finance, time value of money. How do you compare cash flows that occur at different points in time? This is the tool that you probably use every day, deciding on your mortgage, deciding how to pay for your car, planning for your retirement, and so on. So after this lecture, you will be able to compare cash flows at different points in time, move cash flows in time around, compute the future value of a cash flow today, or compute the present value of a cash flow that occurs in the future. You will also understand the power of compounding and why it makes such a big difference. All right, let's get started. Do you like movies? I like movies a lot, and I'm a big movie buff. So here I have a list of all-time worldwide box office winners. You might recognize some of these names. For example, Avatar is at the top with 2.8 billion US dollars, followed by Titanic, and then the latest Star Wars, which I haven't seen, and Jurassic Park, and even classics like Gone with the Wind. Now, what is the problem with this table? Well, of course, I can hear you saying that you can't really compare these numbers since they represent different points in time. For example, how would you compare $2.1 billion that in 1997 to $2.8 billion in 2009? You're probably saying that somehow we need to adjust these numbers, at least for inflation, right? Well, by the way, if you want to find out the true rankings adjusted, you will find the link to the website below the video if you want to find out the true winner. Of course, this is just a silly example to make the point that cash flows that occur at different points in time cannot be directly compared because there is time value of money. So let me give you an example. Suppose I asked you to lend me $100 today and promise to pay you back exactly $100 a year from now. Would you accept it? I mean, other than being really generous and nice to me. Would you think that this was a good deal? You're probably thinking, no, it is not a good deal, right? Then what would make it a good deal? Well, you're probably saying, well, you would want to be paid something in addition. So, like, for example, some interest, typically a positive amount. What is this interest? Well, it is the cost of your money. It is your opportunity cost. So time value of money is another way of just saying that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So why does money have time value? Well, think about it. So you could probably have other uses for that $100. You could buy a nice bottle of wine. You could buy some books. So you could use it for your own consumption. So by giving it up, you're essentially postponing consumption, which you might want to be compensated for. So postponed consumption. Second, there might be some expectation of inflation so that the same $100 may not go as far in the future as it does today. So you might also want to be compensated for that. Finally, there is some chance that I might not even pay you back, right? I could skip town, disappear completely. You might never be able to find me, and you'll never get paid back. So you might also want to be compensated for that risk. Right? So all of these represent an opportunity cost for you. So this is why we might have a positive interest rate. So to make the cash flow, the $100, equivalent to something in the future, you would probably expect $100 plus some interest to make up for your opportunity cost.